So the second observation I had in looking at the current work on these issues these days is that there is both more and more effective work happening on the quality of what we consume rather than the quantity of what we consume. There's strong movements to promote recycled, FSC, Forest Stewardship Council certified wood, organic and fair trade certified products, PVC and mercury-free toys and medical devices, and lots of other really excellent campaigns, often market campaigns, to address the quality, the toxicity of what we're consuming and what we're producing and consuming. Now, those campaigns are great. We need to keep supporting them. They save forests, they protect workers, they protect babies. But there's far less work and even far less discourse on the quantity of what we consume. And that's a problem because we're consuming too much and we're not sharing it equitably. Even if all the stuff that we consumed was toxics-free, we'd still have some major problems. So why is there much more and more effective work happening on the quality of what we consume rather than the quantity? I have a number of theories on this. One is that there are more short-term wins available on the quality side. You know, get PVC out of lunchboxes, get lead out of lipstick, get neurotoxins out of kids' pajamas. So if we're looking for short-term wins, rather than be willing to sign up for the much slower prodding towards deeper systemic change, quality campaigns deliver. And so as funders, one of the things that funders can do is not just look at short-term wins, but look at, are these campaigns really contributing to longer-term systemic change? Another reason that more work is happening on quality than quantity is that it's easier to talk about the quality of what we consume rather than the quantity. Quality work immediately appeals to a consumer's self-interest because you're talking about getting toxics out of their products. Like, who wants lead in their lipstick and neurotoxins in their kids' pajamas? That you have a ready audience. Talking about quality is safer than talking about the quantity. One can talk about the quality of what we consume without touching on the deeper issues of equity, of how our unsustainable lifestyle is dependent on others abroad and here not having enough. Remember that the US has 5% of the world's population and consumes 30% of the world's resources and makes 30% of the world's waste. And even within the US, there are vast discrepancies in consumption rates. 13 million kids go to bed hungry in the United States every night, and that number is still growing. So once we talk about the quantity of what we consume, we have to address issues of equity, of social justice, and even the very foundation of our growth at all costs economic model. So that's a lot scarier. But you know what? It's also a lot more effective. And that's because we don't have just an environmental problem. We have an environmental problem, a public health problem, a social justice problem, a governance problem, and an equity problem. And the more that we can articulate and address these problems as interrelated, the stronger our movements will be and the more strategic our interventions can be. And that's one of the strongest feedbacks I've gotten from the story of stuff, is that people have flooded our email boxes with congratulations for highlighting the connections between these issues and beginning to break down the silos so that we can evolve our work from being lists of really cool campaigns into being a more integrated movement for transformational change. So the funding implication for that is to keep supporting the groups doing good quality work, because it's enormously important to get toxics out of our products, to promote sustainably harvested wood and other materials. But at the same time, we've got to start addressing issues around the quantity of what we consume, not just the quality. Many of the groups that are working on the quality of what we consume have decades of credibility and trust with the public built. We should leverage that infrastructure if they're interested and support them even further to begin to work on issues related to the quantity of what we consume. So the third observation that I wanted to share is that in the US, more than any other place I see, we have two different sort of self-identities. One is the identity of a consumer, and one is the identity of a citizen. Now, I go around the world, actually, and give this Story of Stuff talk live or show the film. And in the US, more than any other place, one of the first questions I get, someone invariably raises their hand and says, "What can I buy differently to solve this problem?" Now, I'm curious about this. And what the theory that I've come up with is that our consumer piece of our self-identity is overdeveloped and the citizen piece has atrophied. That from a very early age in this country, we receive more training on being a good consumer than on being an engaged citizen. US corporations spend billions of dollars a year training us in consumerism. The citizen muscle is atrophied. School curriculums, entertainment, and many other aspects of life increasingly have a consumer element. I'm sure you've seen those studies about kids can recognize corporate logos before they can recognize letters of the alphabets, and adults can recognize far more corporate logos than elected public officials. We know the time and locations of the best bargain shopping in our communities, but we don't know the basic structures of our democracy anymore. Now, this is one of the trends that most scares me because it's self-perpetuating. It's like that nonlinear relationship in climate change. When you get to a certain point, it just keeps going by itself. I think it's the same thing with the erosion of our civic engagement. And the reason is that as our consumer self gets overdeveloped, we're spending more and more time further feeding that. We're spending more hours working and shopping than ever before. And for those of you who know the story of Stuff, the two activities that we spend the bulk of our leisure time on is watching TV and shopping. So as our time spent working, shopping, and watching TV increases, that time has to come from somewhere. Where it's coming from is we're spending less time engaged in communities and engaged in civic activities. So we're seeing an erosion in our communities and our civic life because we're investing in them less. So then lots of things that the community and civic life used to provide, logistical things like a ride to the airport, help moving, child care, or emotional things, someone to talk to when you're blue, or a sense of being something larger than yourself, a sense of meaning. All of these things that the community and civic engagement used to provide, they're not providing it anymore, so they're being commodified, so we have to go out and work more to shop and buy these things. We have to pay for these things that our neighbors used to provide. We have to demonstrate our meaning by having the latest logo or the coolest car, and so it's becoming a self-replicating downward spiral. And the reason it scares me is that we need civic engagement and strong communities now more than ever if we're going to turn this around. So one of the things that I would suggest to funders is that we add another lens to our grant-making criteria, and that is, does this project help re-engage people in civil society? Does it help build an active living democracy? And in a sense, I don't even care what issue it is, if it's getting greenways for safe transportation or working for farmers market or any of these issues, just we got to get people back involved in civic engagement, because I don't think there's anything that's going to help more in the coming years than a reinvigorated, re-engaged, and re-inspired civil society in this country. The way I see it is that we are going to transition to a more sustainable society inevitably. We're either going to transition by design or by default. And if we do it by design, it's going to require an engaged, informed, active civil society to lead the way. It's still going to be hard. It's still going to be disruptive and cause a lot of transition. But if we do it by design, we can be more intelligent and mindful about it. If we do it by default, I'm worried there's going to be a lot of casualties along the way and really massive inequity in terms of who bears the brunt. So we're going that way towards more sustainability regardless. We're running out of oil. You know, across the spectrum, all the ecological indicators show us that we can't continue on this path. But what I would say is that the more we can engage people in a living democracy, the more we can make sure that we do it by design rather than default. That's it.